Hello, my name's Susy Kirk. I'm here to tell you probably quite a few tales about my very interesting time in a beautiful town in a very special country called Laos, or Lao People's Democratic Republic, which at the time was emerging out of a very heavy communist period. This is the town of Luang Prabang, and it's at a confluence of where two rivers meet, the huge Mekong River and a smaller river called the Nam Can. And the town itself, when we arrived, was full of decaying, decrepit French colonial villas and about 30 exquisite temples, because the majority of the Lao are practicing Buddhists, though many of the people who live in the hills are animists. We were lucky enough to live on the banks of the Mekong with the most incredible view and sunsets. That's a picture of the balcony with the sun setting on these hills. But the house itself was a converted pigsty.
No way.
It had been a pigsty, and then the Swiss Red Cross converted it to be a storeroom and a small accommodation for their nurse. The nurse left, and I begged them to let us live there. We were attached to the Swedish Development Agency, and my partner was working on a big agronomic project with shifting cultivators, which means up in the hills the people would cut the trees and all the bushes, burn the land, the ash would fertilize the soil, and they would grow their crops there. Caused appalling smoke pollution at the time of year when they burnt it, and it was not sustainable as the population grew. So I arrived on an ancient Chinese plane called a yak, rattling and wobbling its way along the runway with patched tires. Terrifying experience over glorious forested country with huge limestone cliffs rising up. And arrived in this dusty field with a tiny shack in it, and that was the airport, which was over here.
Where was your house on this map?
Our house was way down the river. I've marked it under that A of Luang Prabang here.
Beautiful.
And I had a bicycle. And when you were, at least when you were riding the bicycle, the breeze would cool you down a bit, because most of the time it was very, very, very hot. And some of the time in the monsoon it was incredibly humid. Mold grew on everything in the monsoon.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, I loved my bicycle, and I would ride for miles and miles, visiting the various markets. Either the vegetable market, or in the center was Talat Dara. And Talat Dara was full of goods, household goods that came from Czechoslovakia, Vietnam, all the communist countries, of course. I needed an iron to iron my linen shirt, so I went looking in Talat Dara, and I found an iron that you lifted the lid and you put hot coals in. That was the only iron available. So I thought, no, I'll just go around and crumple.
Good crumples.
And it was also full of these wonderful floral materials.
Oh, wow.
People's mattresses were covered in this glorious floral.
Wow.
There were packeted foods from China, Czech goods. Oh, bizarre and wonderful experience. And adjacent to the market were tiny, dusty little booths with lots of very yellow gold, a lot of which had been panned in the Mekong, panned by ancient crones with these huge old teak gold panning trays.
Are you wearing some of that gold?
I am indeed
Show me
wearing
this
the
ring.
first and only bit of gold I ever had. I got a young Vietnamese boy to make it up. I said I want it to look really old.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave him these stones, which I'd got on a previous trip in another country. And I love it. Anyway, what were we talking about?
What else have
Gold.
you got here? You've got some
What
other
else have I
objects
got
here.
here? Oh, yes, so in these dusty little
Yeah.
goldsmith places, of bright gold, and you could find old British Empire silver rupees. This is half rupee, I think. But a lot of this silver was there because it had been converted into tribal silver.
Mm-hmm.
So the Lao Lum, who were the urban Lao, I suppose, the lowland Lao, liked this gold.
Mm-hmm.
So they would use silver for their belts.
So
This
what
is
is
a
this?
beautiful belt with all the little animals. And the reason there was so much silversmithing going on in the town was because it had been the old royal capital. And so when the king was there in his palace, the best weavers were in a village just outside of Luang Prabang called Ban Panon. They'd come down from Sipsompana in China.
Mm-hmm.
He had the best weavers, he had the best wood carvers, he had the best goldsmiths, best silversmiths. This, I think, is a remnant from French colonial times. I found this in Ban Panon, which was the famous weavers' village.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no way this is Asian. This, I'm sure, is a French candlestick. And to me, I feel it's from those early explorers in the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, here I have a book that was given to my grandfather about the travels of François Garnier, a French explorer in the 1860s, I think, in Laos. So it was
What's it called? In the Far East.
In the Far East by François Garnier. So that was quite special. My grandfather ended up in Canton in China,
Uh-huh.
but it was wonderful to have a book which had been given to him when he was 14,
Yeah.
and I'd ended up in the town described in it.
Fantastic.
So the market was full of floral fabrics from China, extraordinary enamel tinware, which I loved. I had a whole collection. This is an original from Luang Prabang. So huge influence from China, which
Yeah.
continues to this day. Old influences from France, from the French Indochine, L'Indochine they called it. And then filtered remnants of the British Empire coming through India, Burma, and across through the hill tribes into Lao PDR. Ending with a secret war concurrent with the Vietnam War, when the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which led supplies up to the communist Vietnamese in the north, encroached on Laotian territory, and the Americans did not like that, and so they bombed the country to bits, literally to bits.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were there in 1992, the communist leaders, during the war, 20 years previously, had hidden in caves up in Hua Pan, up near the Vietnamese border. And then, when the Americans were defeated, those exiles in the caves became the communist government. And these wonderful weavings are from that area,
Oh, wow.
up on the border with Hua Pan, it's called, the border with Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
The
Beautiful.
tiger keeps your enemies at bay. These are blankets, actually.
Beautiful.
Enemies at bay.
And I'm just wondering why this spoon is here. What can you
This
tell me about the
spoon, this funny little spoon, is actually made from recycled B-52s,
Wow.
or whatever the Americans chucked down on the poor Laos, made of aluminium. And the clever Hmong people, the tribal people, made molds and melted the war detritus and made spoons.
So they turned an old plane, part of an old B-52 plane, into functional objects, basically.
From swords to ploughshares,
Amazing.
as they call it.
Amazing.
The Hmong suffered a lot during this period. The CIA infiltrated at Laos and had many Hmong helpers. And many, many Hmong, thousands of Hmong, became refugees and fled, and many are now in America.
Wow.
Not so many Khmu fled, as far as I know. The Khmu are considered the original people, perhaps remnants from a Khmer civilization in Cambodia, wonderfully in tune with nature, subsistence living, very, very poor, downtrodden, considered with not much regard by the rest of the Lao. But I think their basket work is exquisite.
Very beautiful.
And then there's a mystery surrounding their enamel, their metalwork, which could be linked with a very ancient bronze casting tradition, again, from the mists of time. These are mystery objects to me, but obviously with heavy animist symbolism.
And what's this one here?
This one, beautifully made, I was told, is to keep your pet cricket in.
There he is.
And there he is. Well, he's plastic. But such a lovely idea. The children did not have many toys, of course, at all.
And there wouldn't have been any plastic, would there, at all, when you were there?
There were very little plastic. In fact, I remember my friend so excited when she found a plastic truck to bring back as a birthday.
What year was this?
Gift.
Early 90s?
That was 97.
97.
But plastic, when we first went in the markets, you'd have your basket, everything would go in the basket. Tofu, freshly made tofu, was wrapped in a banana leaf with a little sliver of bamboo keeping it in. There were no plastic bags. I mean, they didn't exist.
Just didn't exist.
When I first went. By 1993, they were beginning to come in.
Yeah.
By 1994, when the river receded, there was ghastly lacework of plastic caught in the branches of the trees at the side of the river. 1992, we didn't hear birdsong at all. No birds.
No
all
birds?
the birds had been eaten by very hungry people. There were plenty of lizards.
Yeah.
Lots of lizards. Like this is a little plastic one, but these were everywhere.
Yeah.
On the walls.
You imagine.
And behind our fridge in the kitchen, we had a giant lizard, bigger than this actually, called a toke.
You named him?
Toke. That was the call. And he lived behind the fridge, but one night a bat flew into the kitchen.
Oh my gosh.
And there was the battle of the lizard and the bat. And the lizard won.
The lizard won, so blood everywhere.
Ghastly.
Oh my goodness.
And another story I've got, we did have rats in the roof.
Oof.
And in the kitchen there was a little corner of the bamboo roofing, and there was a hole. I thought, that little, it's the rat.
Oh.
And sure enough, one night I heard this ghastly noise. I crept into the kitchen and I could see two hideous yellow fangs.
Oh my God.
In the little hole. I thought he's going to make that hole big and he's going to come into the house. So I got a special sort of chili, the hottest chili you can get. Very quietly put the chili up to the hole. Ate it. All right. Got a second chili.
Oh my gosh.
Ghastly yellow teeth chomped away on it. Ate it. Then I got a third. And halfway through the third one, there was silence. And he never came back.
He never came back. Oh my goodness me. Susie,
Wildlife.
it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much. I would love to hear more of your stories, and I'm sure we will be meeting you again. Thanks very much.
My very great pleasure.